Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I've got a story for you that still sends shivers down my spine whenever I think about it. It's about the old cabin my family inherited deep in the woods, a place that held more secrets than we could have ever imagined. It all started the first summer we decided to spend there. The cabin was rustic, smelled of pine and damp earth, and was filled with dusty, forgotten furniture. But the strangest things were the mirrors. There were so many of them, in every room, even in the hallway. They were old, with ornate, tarnished frames. At first, we didn't think much of them. We were just excited to escape the city, to breathe in the fresh mountain air, and spend our days hiking and our nights by the fire. But after a few days, I started to notice something odd. Whenever I glanced at my reflection, it felt off. It was me, but not quite. The person in the mirror seemed a little older, their eyes a little sadder. My sister, Chloe, mentioned it too. She said her reflection sometimes wore a different colored shirt for a split second. We laughed it off as tricks of the light, the old, warped glass playing games with our minds. My parents told us we had overactive imaginations, probably from all the ghost stories we read, but it wasn't just us. Even my dad, a staunch skeptic, admitted one evening that he thought he saw his reflection smile at him when he was unsmiling himself. He quickly dismissed it, blaming fatigue. But the seed of unease had been planted. Each of us started seeing these subtle discrepancies. My mom saw her reflection with her hairstyle differently. I saw mine with a scar on its cheek that I definitely didn't have. These were fleeting images, gone in the blink of an eye. But they were happening to all of us. They were strangers wearing our faces. We tried to ignore it, to enjoy our vacation, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger each day. It felt like the mirrors weren't just reflecting our world. They were windows into another, almost identical one, where our counterparts lived slightly different lives. The cabin, which once felt like a cozy retreat, now felt like a cage, and the mirrors were the bars, with silent, watchful strangers on the other side. The nights became the worst. Lying in bed, I'd stare into the darkness, imagining the figures in the mirrors, standing still. Ghost watching. I started covering the mirror in my room with a blanket before I went to sleep. Chloe did the same. We were all on edge, whispering about it when our parents weren't around, trying to piece together the puzzle. Why were there so many mirrors, and who were these people looking back at us? Then came the night of the storm. The wind howled like a wounded animal, and rain lashed against the windows. The power, as it often did out there, flickered and died, plunging us into absolute darkness. My dad lit some candles, their flames dancing and casting long, distorted shadows that made the cabin feel even more menacing. We were all huddled in the living room, trying to make light of the situation, but the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. That's when we heard it. A faint, rhythmic tapping. We all froze. Listening, it wasn't coming from the windows or the door. My dad stood up, holding a candle, and followed the sound. It led him to the long hallway, the one lined with mirrors on both sides. We followed close behind, our hearts pounding in our chests. The tapping was getting louder, more distinct. It sounded like someone was knocking on glass. As we stood at the entrance to the hallway, the candlelight illuminated the mirrors, and what we saw made our blood run cold. In every single mirror, the reflections were moving. But they weren't our reflections. They were the strangers. The man who looked like my dad was pacing back and forth. The woman who looked like my mom was wringing her hands anxiously. The girl who looked like Chloe was tapping insistently on the glass. And the boy who looked like me, he was staring right at us, a look of desperate warning in his eyes. They weren't mimicking us anymore. They were moving on their own, trapped within their glass prisons, their movements frantic and urgent. The girl who looked like Chloe pointed behind us, her expression one of sheer terror. We slowly turned around, our candlelit shadows stretching before us. And there, standing in the living room doorway, were 4 figures. They looked exactly like us. Perfect copies, but their eyes were empty. And their smiles were wrongs. They were predatory and cold. They were our reflections, somehow stepped out of the mirrors. The real us, my family, were huddled in the hallway. The people in the mirrors weren't strangers. They were us from another dimension, trying to warn us. The copies started walking towards us, their movements stiff and unnatural. We were trapped. Behind us were the terrified versions of ourselves, pounding on the glass, and in front of us were these things wearing our faces. My dad pushed us back, shouting to run. We scrambled into the nearest bedroom and slammed the door, barricading it with a heavy dresser. We could hear them outside, scratching at the wood, their voices mimicking ours, telling us to let them in. Huddled together in the dark, we could still see the mirror in the room, and in it, we saw our other selves, the ones from the mirror world. They weren't trying to scare us. They were trying to help. The other me was pointing frantically at the window. It was our only way out. My dad managed to pry it open. One by one, we climbed out into the raging storm, not caring about the wind or the rain. All that mattered was getting away. We ran through the woods, not daring to look back, until we reached the main road and flagged down a passing car. We never went back to that cabin. We left everything behind: our clothes, our belongings, and those terrible mirrors. We sold the property without ever setting foot on it again. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what happened. Did our reflections take over our lives in that cabin? And what about the family trapped in the mirrors? Are they still there, pounding on the glass, forever watching their terrifying door? I don't have the answers. All I know is that now, whenever I look in a mirror, I look for a little too long, just to make sure the person staring back is really me. Thanks for listening to my story. It's a chilling one, I know. If you enjoyed it, or if it gave you the creeps, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe, and always be careful of what's looking back at you. See you next time.